3 spine-chilling true stories of haunted summer nights. Unexplained terrors exposed. The Harris family prepared for what they thought would be a blissful summer in Maplewood, a neighborhood cloaked in friendly smiles and backyard barbecues. But as the sun dipped below the horizon and the shadows stretched across their lawn, the air tinged with something far more ominous than warm, buttery corn. It began with the rustle of leaves, a whispering wind that morphed into a chilling hiss, calling out the names of their children, Riley, Emma, Jake. The friendly neighborhood facade cracked as evening crept in, unveiling a night alive with unseen horrors. At first, it seemed like innocent kids play a creaky floorboard here, a sudden gust of wind there, totally harmless. Right? Things escalated quickly, though. They were just jests, harmless mockery of their own house being alive. Michael laughed, holding up a creaking door, while Lisa reminded him to fix the aged window frames. But what they didn't know was that mocking the strange disturbances would invite unspeakable dread into their lives. One fateful evening, the neighborhood buzzed with laughter and grill smoke, the sweet scent of summer wafting through the air. Riley dashed outside to fetch Max, the family dog, who took off into the accumulating darkness. It was then he spotted it, a fleeting shadow beneath the oak tree, glowing eyes that pierced through the night. He froze, heart racing, pulse pounding, before deciding to ignore it. Just my imagination, he whispered to himself, though a bone-deep chill gripped him tight. Hey, you back there? He called out, trying to shake off the feeling of being watched. But home didn't he feel like a refuge anymore. A laugh trapped in his throat turned to unease as he returned to a home filled with warmth that no longer felt safe. His parents brushed it off, too consumed by their own plans and laughter to notice the surge of dread in his eyes. They never knew the history, never suspected that Maplewood was a stained canvas ghosted by colorless lives once lost, secrets buried, never spoken of. Then it happened. Riley went missing. Just like that, their happy days shattered under the oppressive weight of fear. Neighbors exchanged glances, their eyes hollow with disinterest as Michael and Lisa panicked, knocking on doors and calling out their son's name. Kids run off all the time, was all they got from the local authorities, dismissing their frantic pleas like autumn leaves swirling into nothingness. Now it was too late, the walls of Maplewood closing in. Hidden smiles from their neighbors turned sinister, unspoken words hanging in the air. It grew heavy with unreconcilable fear. They found themselves knee-deep in obscured memories, stories of lost children and whispered shadows. Ghostly echoes of laughter intertwined with tales of sorrow felt like a collage of nightmares brought to life. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Under the oppressive weight of the night sky, damp air clung to their skin as they discovered remnants of disappearances, smudged memories plastered on neglectful houses. Cleaner laughter became haunting whispers. The knowledge that the very ground they stood on might be cursed sent shivers racing down Michael's spine, the chilling reminder that Maplewood had masked monstrosities behind a curtain of normalcy. The clock struck midnight, silence draped across the neighborhood like a funeral veil. A breeze swept through the Harris home, a haunting voice whispering sweetly. Riley's laughter danced through the air, inviting, taunting, just out of reach. Fearing the unspeakable truth, Michael and Lisa wrestled with a nightmare too great to comprehend. It became clear. Who did they really know? Who stood smiling next door as shadows crept closer, threatening to snatch another child away? Would they ever see Riley again? The next few days crawled with dread, each hour an eternity for the Harris family. Michael could barely sleep, the imagined horrors of Maplewood replaying in his mind like a terrifying loop. He often found himself pacing the house, searching for any sign of Riley, an inconspicuous shoe left behind, an unfinished drawing on his desk. But it was all gone, vanished as if the boy had never existed. Lisa had grown distant, her laughter replaced with a haunted expression that seemed to age her years overnight. She filled the silence with desperate prayers, clutching a tattered teddy bear that Riley used to cherish. It made her feel closer to their son, but each squeeze only intensified the emptiness that had settled in their hearts. "He'll come home, right?" she whispered to Michael one night, her voice trembling, as if hoping to convince herself, but something sinister was shifting in the air, lurking just beyond the periphery of their senses. The neighbors, who once exchanged pleasantries, now evaded eye contact. Whenever Michael stepped outside, he sensed their eyes on him, empty and unforgiving. Conversations halted as he approached, leaving him with only the echo of his own footsteps pounding painfully on the pavement. One afternoon, Michael took a chance and approached Mrs. Pendleton, an elderly woman known for her extensive gardening knowledge. Her backyard was wild and unruly, a jarring contrast to the homes around her. "Have you seen Riley?" he asked, desperation mingling with hope. Her reaction was immediate, a flinch, tight lips pressed together like a vice. "Sometimes, children wander. Only the brave find their way back," she muttered before turning her back to him. Those words gnawed at him, intensifying the gnawing pit in his stomach. He turned home, each step heavier than the last. That evening, as shadows lengthened and swallowed the streets, Michael stumbled upon a chilling discovery in their backyard, a small, crudely carved wooden figure partially buried in the dirt. It wasn't just any figure. It resembled a child, arms outstretched, eyes hollow and knowing. The moment he unearthed it, an icy wind brushed past, sending goosebumps prickling across his skin. He dropped the figure, horrified, but felt an unshakable compulsion to touch it again. He knelt, staring into the vacant gaze of the wooden child. It felt eerie, almost as if it held the answers to transcendental questions he wasn't ready to face. "Maybe it's just a stupid doll," he muttered, trying to convince himself as he picked it up. But laughter erupted from behind him, rising out of the eerie silence like dark smoke. His heart slammed in his chest. He turned to find a cluster of children gathered at the edge of the yard, faces pale, staring at him with wide, unblinking eyes all too familiar, yet not. "Riley?" he shouted, hope tinged with fear. Their laughter melded into haunting whispers, filling the air with sinister echoes. He dropped the figure and stumbled backward, confusion clouding his senses as the children started to disperse, shadows dancing around them. For a fleeting moment, he thought he spotted Riley among them, his laughter mingling with the night breeze as if pulling him into another world. Gripped by panic, Michael rushed into the house, heart pounding. "Lisa!" he yelled, fear bubbling within him. "We need to leave Maplewood. Now!" But as he turned, he heard the front door creak open slowly. Was it his imagination, or were they here at last? The door creaked wider, revealing nothing but the inky darkness of the hallway. Michael's eyes darted back and forth, his heart racing. A chilling dread settled deep in his bones. He stepped forward cautiously, every nerve alive, trembling with apprehension. "Lisa?" he called again, but his voice trembled on the edges, swallowed by the thick no answer. He felt the weight of silence crush him. With a shaky hand, he flicked on the hallway light, its harsh glare illuminating the space. The shadows retreated, revealing familiar decor, a stark contrast to the growing chaos in his mind. But Lisa was nowhere to be found. Desperation clawed at him. He rushed through the house, the floorboards creaking beneath the weight of his fear. "Lisa!" Panic seeped into every syllable. He checked the kitchen, the living room, the bathroom. His breaths came in short, frantic gasps. As he made his way to Riley's room, the door stood slightly ajar, a slice of darkness beckoning him closer. The hairs on the back of his neck prickled as he pushed it open. Inside, the scene was heartbreakingly unchanged. Riley's toys littered the floor, untouched. His bed was still messy from the last time he had jumped out of it, yelling stories of great adventures. That was the last time. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. In the dim light, he spotted something small on the bedside table. It was a photo of Riley, grinning wide beside his mother. Michael felt a sharp pain in his chest. He picked it up, holding it as if it was a fragile piece of glass that might shatter at any moment. Just then, he heard a soft giggle drifting from the hallway, the kind of laughter that belonged to his son. Riley? He whispered, hope igniting in his heart. It was followed by a quick, fleeting shadow darting past the open doorway. He dashed out, every instinct roaring to chase after it, but the moment he stepped into the hall, the oppressive silence tightened around him once again. Where are you? He muttered, fear thickening his voice. The air grew colder, nipping at his skin. Suddenly, the windows rattled violently. Michael's breath hitched as he stood frozen. He was no longer alone. From the depths of the house, a low hum began to fill the air, increasing in volume, weaving through the walls as if the house itself was waking. And with it came whispers, soft, beckoning voices that mixed with the haunting echoes of children's laughter. He turned toward the living room, drawn like a moth to a flickering flame. Shadows gathered, and the air felt charged, vibrating with unspent energy. Get out, Michael, a voice whispered, unmistakably Lisa's, yet distorted and raw. Cold dread swept through him. Had she come back? Or was something else at work? He took a step forward, and then another. The floorboards groaned beneath him, announcing his every movement. As he entered the living room, the light flickered, casting erratic shadows that danced on the walls. In the corner, something moved. A fleeting shape swirled in his periphery. Michael turned abruptly, heart pounding so loud in his chest he thought it would burst. But when he focused again, there was nothing, only the stubborn shadows lingering, mocking him with their silent secrets. Then he heard the front door slamming shut with a resounding thud. A rush of panic washed over him as he ran toward it, but the handle refused to budge. He was trapped. Let me out! He shouted, frustration boiling over as he pounded on the door. The whispers crescendoed, swirling around him like a storm. Amid the chaos, realization crashed over him. Whatever was happening here, it wasn't just about finding Riley anymore. Something had been unleashed, something dark and relentless, and it seemed to feed off his fear. The whispers turned sharp, almost gloating. Are you brave enough to find them? His skin crawled, eyes scanning the room as he braced for whatever was lurking in the dark corners. The house was alive, breathing, and right now, it craved something deep within him. Did he dare to confront it? He felt a sinister pull, urging him forward into the unknown. The weight of the wooden figure hanging in his mind, the children's laughter haunting his thoughts. And just like that, a chill swept through him, anchoring his feet in place. The shadows grew thicker, pressing in, as if to ensnare him like prey. What awaited him in the darkness? Mommy! Came a heartbreaking cry from downstairs. Without thinking, he followed it. The darkness vibrated with energy, promising answers and deeper mysteries. As Michael bolted down the stairs, he could feel a weight dragging at his heels, a palpable force trying to pull him back into the shadows. Each step was a battle against the oppressive darkness that seemed to grow thicker, wrapping around him like a suffocating shroud. It felt alive, hungry. Riley! He yelled, his voice echoing back, empty and mocking. The soft cries had faded into the eerie stillness, leaving behind an unsettling resonance that made him question whether he had really heard anything at all. Taking a deep breath, he clutched the banister tightly, the wood cold beneath his palm, and launched himself into the chilling abyss of the house. The living room was dark, but moonlight cut through the corners like jagged blades, illuminating fragments of familiar furniture that now loomed like silent specters. Back near the front door, he caught a flicker of movement, just at the edge of the light. Panic surged. Was it another shadow, or something real? He squinted into the darkness, heart racing, and in that moment, the blood drained from his face. A figure darted across the room, leaving no doubt that he was not alone. With trembling hands, Michael reached for the wall, feeling its rough texture under his fingertips as he steeled himself. He had to follow, to know. Please, he whispered, urging himself forward as if he could will his legs to move faster. But as he arrived at the edge of the living room, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew colder, each breath visible in a shuddering puff that echoed in the heavy silence. And then he heard it again, a soft cry, more defined this time, coming from deeper within the house. It was a call for help, but the pitch was all wrong, distorted, layered with a chilling echo that sent shivers racing down his spine. Mommy! The cry was horrifyingly familiar yet laced with something otherworldly, as if a dark entity had wrapped itself around Riley's voice, using it to lure him in. He rushed down the dim hallway, driven by instinct, fear, and the lingering hope that Riley was truly calling for him. Each room he passed was shrouded in darkness, their contents obscured and threatening. As he approached the kitchen, the air thickened, heavy with the scent of something rotting. The enormity of his fear crashed against him as he flung open the door, heart pounding in his ears. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed ominously, flickering as if they could barely contain the shadows waging war against their illumination. But the kitchen was empty. The tiles beneath his feet felt slick, the evidence of some unseen presence lingering in the decay. There, on the table, lay a doll, Riley's favorite. Its glassy eyes stared blankly back at him, as if it had seen too much. "Riley?" Michael yelled again, desperation clawing at his throat. "Daddy!" The whisper ignited a spark of panic that sent him spinning around. Was it an echo? Or was Riley truly so close? Teeth clenched and fists trembling, he rushed back into the hall, range of emotions battling within him. With each step, the air thickened, charged with an eerie energy that promised terror with every heartbeat. And then, the whispers crescendoed again, wrapping around him, cascading like a symphony of the damned. Figures materialized in the dark, faces peering out of the shadowy recesses, their mouths moving in a silent mockery of a scream. The realization hit him. They were not merely shadows. They were memories, pieces of those lost within these walls, the trapped. And they were hungry. With a primal scream of his own, Michael tore down the hallway, chasing after the sound that had once filled him with hope. The darkness roared after him, alive and breathing, malevolent in its pursuit. "Mommy!" the voice pleaded again, the echoes slicing through him, but this time it seemed to come from beneath his feet. Without a second thought, he dove toward the basement door, wrenching it open, the taste of dread thick in the air. What lay below was unknown, but he could not stop now. He had to find Riley. The stairs creaked ominously as he descended, heart thudding furiously. What kind of horrors awaited him in this wretched darkness? "Daddy!" The cry was clearer now, desperate and unyielding, reverberating off the damp concrete walls. But with every heartbeat, the shadows whispered, promising him a fate worse than fear itself. Do the walls hold answers or only more nightmares? The basement was suffocating. A tightness settled in Michael's chest as he stepped further into the abyss. The air was thick and damp, weighed down with the scent of mildew. He couldn't tell if the moisture came from the walls or something more sinister lurking in the shadows. His heart pounded in rhythm with his footfalls, each echo amplifying the impending dread. "Daddy!" The cry pierced through the oppressive darkness again, so close yet so maddeningly out of reach. Every nerve in his body shouted at him to turn back, to escape the supernatural grip of this cursed place. But the sound was like a beacon, drawing him closer. He swept his hands across the wall, desperately searching for a light switch but finding nothing but wet bricks and jagged edges. The cries warped and twisted again, morphing into something almost sorrowful, an echo of pain that made him hesitate. "Riley!" he shouted, voice trembling, barely above a whisper. Silence enveloped him, thick and suffocating, like a hand around his throat. Then came the whispers, moving around him like a gust of wind, teasing him with indistinguishable words that clawed at his sanity. "Help, help us, help, stop!" he shouted. "Get away from me!" Panic surged, rendering him breathless, the grip of terror tightening. It felt as if the basement itself was alive, wailing with spirits tethered to grief, sadness, and longing. In the corner of his eye, movement flickered, a shadow darted along the fringes of the dim light from the stairway, a fleeting silhouette that sent a cold shiver racing down his spine. He turned, breathing hard, every instinct screaming at him to flee. But he had to see it. Had to know. "Riley!" He took a tentative step forward, the floor squelching beneath him, a hidden layer of filth that squirmed against his feet. "Daddy!" The voice was closer now, pulling him into the depths. He felt the despair of the lost, felt it claw at him, making his resolve waver. What was left of his courage slipped through his fingers, yet he pressed on, heart hammering wildly. As he moved deeper, The space grew more oppressive, swallowing the remnants of any hope. It felt like stepping into a living grave, filled with the whispers of the forsaken. He squinted into the darkness, barely discerning shapes that writhed, flickering, bending as if desperate to escape. "Get out!" he yelled into the void, and the shadows momentarily stilled. Then, a soft sob broke through. "Help!" The sound floated through the thick air, weighty with sorrow. Michael's chest tightened, the echo striking his very core. Suddenly, a slamming noise reverberated through the basement, thunderous and unnatural. Everything froze. The whispering stopped. The shadows retreated momentarily, creating a silence more deafening than before. And then laughter erupted. A horrible, twisted sound that echoed around him, chilling him to the bone. The shadows flickered back to life, morphing into grotesque forms that loomed closer, surrounding him. Faces twisted in agony and despair grinned menacingly, urging him to succumb. Terror flooded his veins, and he stumbled backward, heart racing faster than ever. He couldn't stay here. Not anymore. But before he could turn to flee, a hand shot out from the darkness, icy and skeletal, snagging his wrist like a vice. "Help us!" it rasped, pulling Michael towards the depths. "Riley!" he screamed, trying to break free, but their grip was unyielding, dragging him closer to the unspeakable horror that awaited. The basement trembled, a monster awakening from an eternal slumber, its hunger palpable in the bone-chilling air. What had Michael awakened, and could he still find his daughter before it was too late? As the shadows tightened around him, Michael realized he might not have the strength to escape this nightmare alone. Would he lose his grip on reality before he found his daughter? His pulse thundered in his ears as he struggled against the grip that clung to him with a tenacity that defied the laws of nature. The skeletal hand felt cold, too cold, and it sent an avalanche of ice through his veins. Panic clawed at his throat as he fought to breathe, each inhale becoming more labored as he was pulled deeper into the suffocating shadows. "Riley!" he shouted again, desperation lacing his voice, but it came out as a whimper. The darkness hummed with malicious energy, surrounding him, and yet all he could think about was breaking that grip. In a burst of adrenaline, he twisted, jabbing his elbow forcefully against the arm that held him captive. The grip loosened, allowing him a moment of freedom. His heart raced as he stumbled back, desperate to escape the grotesque forms that loomed near. Every inch of his being urged him to bolt toward the entrance, but the phantom cries of his daughter echoed around him, a siren's call that tugged at his heart. "Daddy! Help!" The cry was unmistakably her voice, and it shattered his resolve to flee. He couldn't abandon her. He took a cautious step forward into the dark. With every movement, the air grew colder, each breath coming out as a plume of mist. He strained his ears to pick up any distinct sound, any sign of Riley. "Where are you?" he croaked, his voice barely above a whisper, as fear gripped him like a vice. From the corner of his vision, shadows danced and twirled, their forms morphing into grotesque images that twisted and contorted with an unsettling life of their own. Laughter bubbled up again, echoing in a cacophony of cruelty. The room seemed to pulse, the very walls vibrating with the sinister energy of something ancient, something insatiable. "Help us! Help!" The voices slithered around him like serpents, each word dripping with malice. "Enough!" Michael screamed into the enveloping gloom, forcing his terror-riddled heart to steel itself. He remembered the thin flashlight strapped to his belt, a last lifeline against the oppressive blackness. Pulling it free, his hands trembled as he flicked the switch, illuminating a small radius in front of him. The beam revealed twisted faces, mouths frozen in silent screams, eyes that glimmered with something wicked. Michael recoiled from the light as it unveiled their torment. The faces were familiar, they shifted and changed, becoming indistinct yet recognizable again. Were these remnants of lost souls? What had he awakened? "Riley!" he shouted again, his voice echoing through the basement. Movement in the shadows caught his attention. The flickering light revealed a small figure further down the corridor, someone trapped within the twisted mass of darkness. Little more than a silhouette, he could make out the familiar outline of a child, small and frail. "Daddy!" The voice, shaky but full of resolve, beckoned him forward. The light quivered in his hand as he stepped into the unknown. With each step, fear seized him anew. The whispers crescendoed into a jarring cacophony. The shapes pressed in on him again, forming a wall of despair just a breath away. As he approached the child, he felt their icy claws grabbing at his legs, pulling, dragging him down like an anchor in a void. "No! I won't let go!" he screamed, yanking his leg free, eyes fixed on that small figure, that glimmer of hope in the center of darkness. But as he reached out, she stumbled backward, into the shade, and suddenly the laughter turned to a chorus of enraged wails. The shadows erupted, twisting and changing, and for a split second, Michael's world spiraled into chaos. "What have you done?" a voice hissed from the murky depths, a tone dripping with malice. Michael's heart raced uncontrollably. Caught between escape and rescue, he felt the weight of a sinister choice pressing against him. Could he save Riley, or was he walking straight into the jaws of something waiting to consume him whole? And as the shadows lunged forward to claim him, he wondered if this was the end, or the beginning of a far worse nightmare. The shadows swarmed around Michael, a swirling tempest of darkness and dread that threatened to consume him whole. An icy grip tightened around his chest, closing in as the voices erupted into a crescendo of desperate wails. "No! Riley!" he screamed again, his voice cracking under the strain. He took a step forward, knowing each heartbeat could be his last. Suddenly, from within the depth of shadow, a piercing blue light flickered to life. It illuminated vague figures shifting in the distance. They weren't just tortured souls, they were prisoners, trapped between dimensions, their faces contorted in agony, as if begging for release. Michael felt sick to his stomach, horror mixing with the desperate need to save his daughter. "Daddy, don't come this way!" Riley's voice sliced through the chaos, urging him back like a rope tugging him from an abyss. "Where are you? What is happening?" Panic exploded within him, each heartbeat punctuated by the creeping dread that he was losing her to the dark. He could almost see the outline of her small frame, desperately trying to navigate a path through the chaos. The light flickered again, unsettling and weak, revealing her swaying figure just beyond the reach of shadows. "Help me!" she gasped, fear spilling from her eyes as she looked around, the darkness closing in on her. It seeped into everything like smoke, wrapping itself around the remnants of her image, distorting it, and suddenly she was there, and then she was gone again. "No!" He lunged forward, the cold clawing shadows grasping at him like hands of doom. They turned molten, grasping, raking across his skin as he stumbled against the wave of despair. Each breath was a struggle, each movement felt heavier, like wading through treacle. The laughter resumed, shrill and taunting. "Help us! Free us!" they beseeched, their words jabbing like knives filled with malice. To his horror, Michael recognized one of the faces, Mr. Campbell, the old man from the neighborhood who'd vanished years ago without a trace. What had happened? Who were these lost ones? The sinister truth slithered in the back of his mind. "Stay away from her!" Michael roared, grounding himself against the encroaching shadows, heart pounding in his chest like a drum. He had to act. There was no time left. But the weight pressed against him only increased. The walls around him trembled. The very structure of the basement seemed to shift, ready to collapse under the pressure of unseen forces. A flare of light shot through the darkness, momentarily enlightening the path to Riley. She was close, so painfully close. "Please!" The desperation in her voice fueled his resolve, and he took another step toward her, ignoring the icy demon fingers clutching at his legs, ignoring the voices pleading for salvation that would condemn him. "I'm coming!" He stumbled again, senses swirling as the light died away. The shadows roared loud, and with devastating force, they pulled him back. "You are too late. She belongs to us now." The ground beneath him cracked, fissures opening up like wounds, and Michael screamed vulnerable, exposed. Just as hope began to slip through his fingers like sand, the beam of light surged once more, brightening the corridor ahead. But Riley still hovered on the edge, her eyes wide with terror. Then, all at once, everything stopped. The quiet was deafening. The last notes of the screaming echoes faded into silence, leaving only the distant sound of his panting breath, punctuated by the pounding rhythm of his frayed nerves. "Why are you doing this?" A figure stepped from the shadows, hinting at something malevolent that felt almost personal. The air thickened with dread as it locked eyes with him. "Because we can," it whispered, breath like ice against his skin. Michael's heart raced, adrenaline flooding his system. The shadows shifted again, swirling around him in a pattern that felt like a dance of death. "Riley!" He yelled one last time, his voice potent with fear and determination. But then, a new voice rang out sharp and mocking in the end. "What will you give up to save her?" Terror coiled in his gut like a snake. He felt the choice stretching before him, the split in his path now palpable. Would he risk everything for a flicker of hope? The incandescent glow faded as darkness surged once more. The cruel laughter crescendoed into a frenzied cacophony, leaving only one haunting question hanging in the air. How much blood would he need to pay to pry his daughter from the maw of despair? And as he faced the malevolent horde, he realized the true horror had only just begun. The shadows shifted again, creeping closer, their malevolence heavy in the air. Michael's heart pounded like a war drum in his ears. "Please, just tell me what to do," he gasped, his breath quickening, desperation choking his voice. The devastating silence gripped him. For a heartbeat, he thought maybe he had lost everything. Then, the figure stepped closer, its form sharpening in the flickering blue light. It was tall, its face masked in darkness, but he could feel the malevolence radiating from it, an aura of chaos and despair. "Sacrifice," it whispered, the word curling around him like smoke. "Would you trade your own blood for hers?" "No!" he shouted, recoiling at the thought. The very idea made him ache, but the shadows screeched, their discordant cries clawing at his sanity. Dim shapes writhed in the edges of his vision, twisting and turning, their faces twisted in agony as they strained against their invisible chains. "Riley!" he called out again, but this time, his voice trembled with uncertainty. "You have to fight. Fight against them." But deep inside, fear began to gnaw at him. What if she couldn't? What if she was already lost? The figure drew closer, and the air grew colder. "All things require a price. The darkness has promises. Are you ready to pay?" Michael's instincts screamed for him to flee, but his daughter, his sweet Riley, was worth more than his own life. With each passing second, the shadows gathered, tightening like a noose. All he could see was her face, each moment more fragile than the last. He didn't want to look back, but he felt compelled, drawn to the faces grimacing in pain among the swirling darkness. Their eyes locked onto his, imploring. "Help us!" they cried in an eerie unison, voices weaving together like a dark symphony. Michael Riley's voice melted through the chaos, a soft thread of light in the tempest. "I'm scared, keep talking to me," he urged, dispelling the encroaching dread, willing himself to ignore the mournful wailing of damned souls. "I'm right here." "Daddy," the flicker of blue shone brighter for a moment, illuminating the twisted faces around him even more. "Please help them." Terror twisted inside him. The weight of Riley's plea crashed down, forcing him to confront the reality of the darkness that surrounded them. What had he stumbled into? What could he do? Before he could think, the figure moved closer, its icy breath freezing the air. "A drop of your blood, a single drop, and perhaps they could be saved." "No! I won't do it!" Michael spat, his voice shaky but defiant. He scanned the area, searching for any semblance of escape. The options felt dire, tight, like the shadows pressing in on him. "Then you will lose her forever." Michael felt a spiral of despair pull him deeper into chaos. Was it true? Would he really sacrifice his own blood, a part of himself, to save her? The decision felt impossible, like a knife lodged in his gut. With each heartbeat, dread seeped deeper into his bones. "Riley," he turned back, searching her face, despair warring with a flicker of hope. "Hold on, just hold on." His mind raced. Could he trust the figure? Could he trust the shadows? Was it all a trap, or was this the route, the only way forward? The blue light flickered again. He could hardly breathe, she was just beyond reach. "Take my hand. I'll find a way." As he stepped forward, the ground quaked beneath him, the chasm of darkness threatening to swallow him whole. With one anguished scream, he thrust his arm out, willing the shadows to retreat, and a faint heartbeat echoed in the abyss. But in that heartbeat, he feared he'd heard the twisted laughter again, mocking, taunting him. "What are you willing to do?" It whispered in a voice that wrapped around his mind like chains. Riley's eyes held his, pleading, hopeful and terrified all at once. "Daddy, please." As the heavens seemed to shatter with laughter, Michael felt the answer slipping through his fingers. He had to choose. And as the shadows closed around him, he began to feel a dark resolution creeping into his heart. Would he lose everything, or could he conquer the abyss to save his daughter? The blue light flickered one last time, illuminating a path, but at what cost? And as he drew closer, a new figure emerged from the darkness, a face he recognized all too well, one he thought he'd never see again. "Michael, I've waited for you," it said, and his heart dropped. What had he stepped into? What had he awakened? Mike, the voice was soft, smooth like oil sliding through his thoughts, yet it dripped with a cold familiarity that froze his blood. "Lily?" He barely managed, fear choking his words. The woman before him, shrouded in the flickering shadows, stepped closer. She wore a smile, wide and unsettling, revealing teeth too white against the darkness. The last time he had seen her, they stood in a sunlit field, laughing. But now, her features twisted into something grotesque, like a memory corroded by darkness. "I've been waiting so long," she crooned, fingers grazing his cheek with a phantom touch. Memories washed over him, hazy warmth transformed into icy dread. "You never came for me, Mike. I was lost, and you left me." Michael's heart thudded so hard he feared it might burst. "No! I tried to save you." Desperation clawed at his throat. The blue light flickered, painting the room in shades of haunting luminescence. In that moment, the shadows around them swirled, eager, like a maelstrom of hungry beasts. Behind Lily, he could see others shifting within the darkness, shadowy figures that looked like pale reflections of agony. Faces he recognized. Friends, family, lost souls. "You had a choice then, and now you have another." Her eyes glinted, a playful spark dancing across her features. "To save Riley, stop this isn't a game," Michael shouted, stepping back, but the ground felt unstable beneath him, treacherous. "Oh, but it is. It's a game of sacrifice, of loss and gain," she replied, tilting her head, the shadows pulsating behind her like a living entity. "Will you repeat your past mistakes?" The figure beside her glowered, pulling the folds of ink-black darkness closer around her. "You are so close, just one drop of blood for the salvation of the guilty. Will you pay the price for others' sins?" Michael's pulse soared, painfully echoing in his ears. He could feel his resolve shattering. "You can't mean that. This can't be the only way. Make your choice, Michael." Lily's voice was lilting, mocking, like a lullaby steeped in venom. "If you don't act, the shadows will consume you both. Weren't you always the hero? Now's your moment. What's her life worth to you?" Riley's face momentarily flickered into view through the shadows, her eyes wide, glistening with unshed tears. It struck him then a wave of unbearable guilt crashed over him. How many had he failed in his life? How many snapped links in a chain he couldn't mend? "Please, Daddy." Riley's voice trembled through him, a lifeline pulling him back to the edge of sanity. "Don't listen to her. I can fight. Help me fight." But around him, the shadows writhed, their voices rising a cacophony of terror. "Sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice," they chanted, weaving through the air like an oppressive fog. "Your blood will make you powerful, Michael," Lily pressed, fingers caressing the air as if she craved his essence. "To cast away these chains, you need to bleed. Every wound holds power. With your sacrifice, you could rewrite your past." His heart raced, fear and grief intertwining. The image of Riley surrounded by darkness, her cries piercing through to his very core. Would he save her by losing himself? He felt his spirit clawing at the surface, battling despair. No! He shouted, but deep within, doubts swirled. What if this was the only way to save her? Was it truly a choice? The air grew thick, tension wrapped around his throat like a noose. Just one drop, the shadows whispered, their chorus rising to a fevered rush. Just one drop. Michael, a howling wind erupted from the depths of the abyss, threatening to drown out his thoughts. The shadows beckoned him closer, urging him forward into despair. Riley's voice trembled within the chaos, urging him to fight. Was there hope in the struggle still, or only further desolation? As the shadows encroached, a new sensation filled him, something raw and wild, awakening dormant instincts he'd buried long ago. He had the power to break free, but how? With one last glance at his daughter, Michael felt a surge of determination. Love, fierce and blaring, ignited in his chest. He would find another way. And just as darkness threatened to consume him whole, the ground beneath him groaned, splitting open. A sliver of brilliant light, blinding in its intensity, erupted from the chasm. What lay beneath? Was it freedom or a deeper nightmare waiting to ensnare him? Michael! Riley screamed, terror lacing her voice, pulling him back as the shadows tightened their grip. The moment seemed to stretch, choice teetered on the edge of oblivion. And in the throes of chaos, he stepped closer to the light swirling, searching for a way out into freedom or into darkness. The question loomed large above him. Would he fall or would he rise? What awaited him on the other side? The air crackled as Michael teetered on the edge of the abyss, the shadows writhing and whispering around him. Riley's cries echoed like a ghostly bell, pulling him back from the depths. The brilliant light lit up the darkness like a guiding star, illuminating a path he had almost forgotten existed. Daddy? Please! Her voice was pure desperation, breaking through the cacophony of evil that surrounded him. In that moment, he saw her, a glimmer of hope wrapped in light just beyond the grasp of the shadows. He could either succumb to the darkness or leap toward the light. His heart hammered as he mentally fought against the suffocating tension coiling around him. I'm coming, baby! Hold on! Michael yelled, committing to the direction of the light flooding the air, outshining the void that clawed at his legs. With a forceful leap, he dived toward the brilliance, every ounce of fear transformed into resolve, and suddenly freedom. A fierce tide of light enveloped him, warm and pure, rippling through him like an electric surge. He burst through the divide between dimensions, landing hard but upright in what felt like a different realm. The shadows shrieked, a wall of darkness closing in behind him, yet it couldn't follow. Michael shot out an arm, heart racing. Riley! He gasped, his eyes roving the blinding brightness, and then he spotted her, small, trembling, fear etched into her features. She was standing beneath the spell of a phosphorescent tree, its leaves shimmering with an ethereal glow. The shadows hovered on the outskirts, swirling like a cyclone, but the light formed a protective barrier, an invisible shield blocking them out. Daddy! Riley cried, running toward him. In those precious moments, he reached for her hand. Their fingers interlocked, warmth radiating between them. The moment felt electric, promising and hopeful. Together, they stepped into the light, and the warmth enveloped them, washing away the remnants of fear. Michael could feel the darkness waning, its hold on him fading like a receding tide. We did it, Riley! He gasped, breathing in the reality of her presence. I thought I lost you. Me too. She wept, clinging to him like a lifeline. But we're okay now, right? But the whispers returned, climbing the edges of his consciousness, pleading sounds bouncing off the silvery trees. Help us, they moaned, and Michael suddenly found himself torn. Around them, those lost souls, trapped in the periphery of shadows, watched with hollow eyes, their pleas piercing through the joy of reunification. He looked into Riley's eyes, both bright and innocent. Riley, I know, Daddy. We can help them, she pleaded, tugging at him. They'll take you away. You have to stay with me. His heart twisted. He couldn't turn his back on them, but the danger loomed large. A choice lay heavy in the air, a sacrifice would be required. Michael shook his head, fighting desperation. Riley, I have to do something, he decided, glancing back into the encroaching shadows. I can't leave them. No! Don't go! Before he knew it, Michael pulled them both to the edges of the light. The whispers intensified, shadows clawing at the realm of brightness. Please, save us, he gripped his daughter's hand tightly. Hold on, trust me. For a fleeting moment he pondered the cost. They were innocent, these lost souls. Yet the terror they had survived bound them like chains, some unknown darkness tied them to Maplewood. Sacrifice, the figure of Lily echoed in his mind, taunting. The darkness hungers, what will you pay? No! Michael roared, shaking off the dread. I will not pay in blood for them. His voice rang out, determined. In that moment of defiance, he felt the light around him surge and intensify, casting away the shadows that lingered so closely. With each step forward, the whispers grew louder, desperate but fading. The grip on them slipped, like fog being lifted under a vibrant sun. Rise up and let light conquer, he cried, planting his feet firmly against the darkness. Daddy, the fear in Riley's voice tensed again, but Michael refused to waver. In an unexpected surge of strength, he directed the warmth fiery and alive toward the lost souls, amplifying the barrier of light. Be free! He roared, unleashing the power within. As the light engulfed them, the shadows screeched in agony, recoiling from the radiance flooding into their darkened hearts. Light burst forth, splintering the encasement of despair, and Michael watched as the trapped souls began to dissolve, freed at last from the clutches of oblivion. Around him, laughter danced with the light, timeless and pure. Michael pulled Riley close as they spun together, spirited onward by the warmth of survival and unity. And in this new realm, where love drowned out fear, they realized that fear had transformed. They were alive, together, as the spirits around them glowed and soared toward the light, reclaiming their own pace into the world they were destined to traverse. But Maplewood still lingered behind an echo in shadows. And as they stepped forward into their future, they knew they'd remember the stories of the lost, healed by one unyielding truth: love, forged in darkness, had the power to illuminate the bleakest paths. With a final, whispered vow to each other's hearts, their journey wasn't merely survival. It was a rebirth into the brilliance of new sunlit days. Forget the darkness. They would bravely create a new home together. Now, before you go, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the thrill alive. I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this intense ending. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Thank you later.